At the central intersection of downtown Boston, where avenues converge amidst a symphony of honking horns, luxury storefronts and street vendors, a small figure darted between cars. Lily Parker carried only 3 possessions: a dirty water bottle, a cotton rag, and the weight of responsibility that had curved her young shoulders from years of silent pleas. She never demanded, never forced. Instead, she would gently approach each vehicle with the same quiet offer. "Want me to clean your windshield, mister?" Most drivers responded by rolling up their windows or pretending not to see her. Others simply waved her away. But Lily persisted. It was late afternoon, and she still needed to earn enough for the gas bill that awaited her grandmother in their makeshift home on Beacon Hill's poorest edge. The stark contrast between Boston's affluent neighborhoods and their struggling community wasn't lost on her. Even at 12 years old, she understood the invisible lines that separated those who drove the cars from those who cleaned them. The autumn wind carried a chill that cut through her thin jacket as she waited for the light to change. When the traffic signal finally turned red, Lily seized her opportunity and sprinted toward a gleaming black sedan with tinted windows and chrome accents that caught the fading sunlight. Without hesitation, she began scrubbing the windshield, her small hands working rapidly against the glass. The window began to lower, and something inside her froze. Her eyes widened. The rag slipped from her grasp. Behind the wheel sat a man in a dark suit with a stern expression, wearing understated glasses, his face marked by lines that time hadn't bothered to conceal. He observed her, puzzled by her sudden stillness. Lily, with a voice barely audible above the city noise, uttered a single word. "Dad?" The traffic light remained red. Time didn't. The man blinked, confused. He looked again, studying her face, and then he noticed her eyes. Those eyes, identical to those of the woman he had known more than a decade ago. The woman with whom he'd had a brief relationship before his financial ascent, before the business trips and contracts. The woman who had disappeared without explanation, taking what might have been his daughter. James Wilson swallowed hard. The light turned green. Cars honked impatiently behind him, but he didn't move. He lowered the window completely and asked, "What's your name?" She answered. A simple name laden with history, a name he had never forgotten, because it had been chosen, even though he'd never had the chance to speak it aloud. "Lily," she said, the name hanging in the air between them like a question and an answer all at once. The noise of traffic couldn't drown out the silence that filled the car. She explained quickly in short sentences. Her mother had passed away 3 years ago. She lived with her grandmother. She had always been told her father was an important man, but too busy to know he had a daughter. She never believed it. Until now. James stepped out of the car, ignoring the honking behind him. His feet touched the asphalt. He knelt down, looked into her eyes, and said only, "Forgive me for never searching." She didn't cry. She merely gripped his arm, as if to confirm he was real. In the days that followed, James sought answers. He found old records, letters never sent, documents that confirmed everything. He made discreet visits to the neighborhood where Lily lived. He met her grandmother, Martha, a stern but loving woman whose distrust was evident in every glance she cast his way. And James realized that for years he had lived surrounded by luxury, but without what now seemed most important, the time he had lost. He decided against making any announcements. He didn't contact the press. He simply began appearing at their doorstep every afternoon, sometimes with books, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with nothing but the silence of someone who needed to build something from scratch. The first few visits were awkward. Martha watched him like a hawk, her weathered hands always busy with some household task, as she positioned herself protectively between James and her granddaughter. "You think you can just waltz in here after all these years?" she had challenged during his second visit. "What do you want from us, Mr. Big Shot?" James had no answer that seemed adequate. Nothing could justify his absence, even if he truly hadn't known about Lily. "I want to know her," was all he could offer. "I want to make up for lost time." Martha had scoffed. "Time doesn't work that way. Can't get it back once it's gone." But despite her harsh words, she hadn't turned him away. Perhaps she recognized the sincerity in his eyes, or maybe she simply knew that Lily deserved whatever good might come from knowing her father. Gradually, Lily began to trust him. She accepted his invitations for ice cream at the local parlor, his awkward attempts at conversation, his tentative offers of comfort when she spoke of her mother, and when someone asked who that man was who kept visiting their run-down apartment, she responded without hesitation, "He's my dad. He arrived late, but he arrived." James's life had been meticulously organized before meeting Lily. As CEO of Wilson Technologies, one of Boston's fastest-growing software companies, his days were structured around meetings, conference calls, and business dinners. His modern penthouse apartment overlooking the harbor contained expensive furniture that had never been sat on, art that had never been truly seen. Now, suddenly, everything felt hollow. He found himself canceling appointments to make it to Lily's school recital, rescheduling investor meetings to help her with math homework. His assistant, Rebecca, noticed the change immediately. "You've never taken a personal day in the 5 years I've worked for you," she commented one morning as James cleared his afternoon schedule. "Now you're taking 3 this week. Are you dying or something?" James had laughed, actually laughed, for what felt like the first time in years. "Just the opposite, Rebecca. I think I'm finally starting to live." But integrating Lily into his world wouldn't be simple. The gulf between their lives seemed insurmountable at times. When he first brought her to his penthouse, she had stood in the entryway, afraid to touch anything. "Do you have plastic covers for the furniture?" she had asked, dead serious. "Grandma says rich people always cover their nice things." James had felt something crack inside him. What kind of life had this child been living while he attended galas and closed million-dollar deals? The corporate board wasn't pleased with his sudden shift in priorities. "Wilson Technologies needs your full attention," Harold Blackwood, the chairman, reminded him during a tense meeting. "This personal matter is affecting company performance." James had fixed the older man with a steady gaze. "My daughter isn't a personal matter, Harold. She's my family." The word felt strange on his tongue. Family. Something he hadn't truly had since his own parents had departed years ago. Something he had convinced himself he didn't need. Now, it was the only thing that mattered. As autumn deepened, James faced a decision. The company was expanding internationally, requiring extensive travel. Before, he would have been on the first plane without question. Now, he hesitated. Lily was just beginning to open up to him. Martha still watched him with suspicious eyes. If he left now, would he lose everything all over again? The morning of his scheduled departure to Tokyo, James sat in his car outside their apartment building for nearly an hour. The engine was off, his suitcase in the trunk, his passport in his pocket. He wasn't sure why he had driven there instead of to the airport. When Lily emerged from the building on her way to school, she spotted his car immediately. Their eyes met through the windshield. No cleaning rag between them this time. Just a question hanging in the air. Would he stay or would he go? Or... Lily approached the car slowly, her backpack slung over one shoulder, uncertainty written across her face. James rolled down the window, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. "Shouldn't you be on a plane?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of accusation beneath the question. James nodded. "I should be. The board is expecting me in Tokyo tomorrow." He hesitated, then added, "But I wanted to talk to you first." Lily shifted her weight from one foot to the other, glancing at her watch. "I'll be late for school." "I can drive you," James offered quickly. Too quickly, perhaps. He saw the hesitation in her eyes. "Or not. Whatever you're comfortable with." A small smile flickered across her face. "Grandma says not to get in cars with strangers." "I'm a stranger." The question hung between them, heavier than he'd intended. Lily considered this, her head tilting slightly. "No, not anymore. But you're not, normal yet." Normal. The word struck James with unexpected force. What would it take to become normal in his daughter's life? How many school drop-offs, how many dinners, how many conversations would bridge the chasm of 12 absent years? 5 minutes, he said. "That's all I'm asking for." Lily glanced again at her watch, then climbed into the passenger seat. Her backpack remained firmly on her lap, a barrier between them. The car smelled of leather and expensive cologne, worlds away from the scent of her grandmother's cooking that perpetually clung to her clothes. "I've decided not to go to Tokyo," James said after a moment of silence. Lily's eyebrows shot up. "Because of me?" "Because of me," he corrected. "Because I've spent too many years chasing the wrong things. I don't want to miss any more time with you." She studied him skeptically. "What about your company?" "The company will survive. I've built a strong team. They can handle things without me for a while." James turned to face her fully. "I'm not saying I'll never travel again, but I want to be here now while we're getting to know each other." Lily nodded slowly, processing his words. "Grandma says you'll get bored eventually, that men like you always do." The bluntness of children. It cut through pretense like nothing else. "Your grandmother has good reasons to be cautious," James acknowledged. "I haven't given either of you reason to trust me yet, but I'm asking for that chance." He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I have something for you." Lily eyed the box suspiciously. "I don't need presents." "It's not exactly a present, more of a promise." He opened the box to reveal a simple silver bracelet with a small charm hanging from it, a tiny windshield wiper. Despite herself, Lily laughed. "Is that supposed to be funny?" "It's supposed to be a reminder," James said, his voice growing serious, "of how we found each other. I don't ever want to forget that day at the intersection. It changed everything for me." Lily touched the charm with one finger, her expression unreadable. "Mom used to say that life can change direction in a heartbeat. 1 minute you're heading one way and then bam, you're going somewhere completely different." She looked up at him. "She never told me you were my dad, you know. Just that my father wasn't around. I figured it out from some old photos she kept in a shoebox." James felt his throat tighten. "I wish I had known about you, Lily. I wish—" "It doesn't matter now," she interrupted with a maturity that startled him. "You're here now. That's what counts, right?" She hesitated, then added, "If you really mean it." "I really mean it," James said firmly. "Now how about that ride to school?" As they drove through Boston's morning traffic, James sensed a subtle shift between them. Nothing dramatic, just a loosening of tension, a few more words exchanged. Lily pointed out her favorite bookstore, the park where she sometimes did homework, the corner where her friend Emma's mother sold flowers on weekends. Small glimpses into her world that felt like precious gifts. When they arrived at the school, James asked, "Would it be okay if I picked you up this afternoon? Maybe we could get ice cream or something." Lily considered this. "Grandma usually meets me." "We could invite her too," James suggested, though the thought of spending an afternoon with Martha's disapproving glares made his stomach clench. To his surprise, Lily grinned. "She won't come. She says ice cream is a frivolous expense." She mimicked her grandmother's stern tone perfectly. "But she'd probably let me go if I tell her it's with you." As Lily climbed out of the car, she hesitated, then turned back. "Thanks for the bracelet, and for not going to Tokyo." Before James could respond, she had disappeared into the stream of students flowing through the school's entrance. He sat there longer than necessary, watching the space where she had been, feeling something unfamiliar expand in his chest. That afternoon, James arrived at the school 20 minutes early, parking where Lily would easily spot him. He had spent the morning reorganizing his entire professional life. Rebecca had been shocked when he informed her of his decision to step back from day-to-day operations. "You're the face of Wilson Technologies," she had protested. "The investors trust you personally. They'll need to start trusting the team I've built," James had replied. "I'm not disappearing, I'm just reprioritizing." The board meeting had been tense, filled with concerned questions and thinly veiled accusations of abandonment. Only Vanessa Chen, the youngest board member, had seemed to understand. "Family first," she had said simply when the others had filed out. "They'll come around." Now, as he waited for Lily, James wondered if he had made the right decision. Wilson Technologies had been his life for so long. He had built it from nothing, sacrificed everything for its success. What if he wasn't cut out to be a father? What if he failed at this too? His thoughts were interrupted by a tap on the window. Lily stood there, accompanied by a girl with curly red hair, who was staring at James's car with undisguised awe. "This is Emma," Lily said as James rolled down the window. "She doesn't believe you're my dad." Emma elbowed Lily sharply. "I didn't say that. I just said it was weird that your dad suddenly showed up after being gone forever." She turned to James with surprising directness. "Are you really her dad, like biologically?" James blinked, taken aback by the child's forthrightness. "Yes, I am. Though I only recently found out about Lily." Emma nodded sagely. "That makes more sense. My mum says men who abandon their kids are trash." She pronounced the verdict with absolute certainty. James wasn't sure whether to be amused or offended. "Your mum sounds like a wise woman." "She is," Emma agreed. She also says rich people should pay more taxes. At this, Lily let out an exasperated sigh. Emma, you can't just say everything your mom says to everyone. Why not? It's true. Emma shrugged, then turned back to Lily. Anyway, can I come for ice cream too? Mom's working late at the flower shop. James glanced at Lily, leaving the decision to her. To his relief, she nodded. Yeah, that's fine, right, Dad? Dad. The word hit him with unexpected force. It was the first time she had called him that. He managed to nod, not trusting his voice for a moment. Of course, the more the merrier. As they drove to the ice cream parlor, the car filled with the chatter of two 12-year-old girls. Emma had no qualms about interrogating James about his life, his company, his car, his apartment. Do you have a pool, a hot tub, a robot vacuum? Lily occasionally shot him apologetic glances, but he didn't mind. There was something refreshing about Emma's straightforward curiosity. The ice cream parlor was a small, family-owned place that James had never noticed despite having lived in Boston for years. The owner, a round-faced man named Tony, greeted Lily by name and asked about her grandmother. "And who's this with you today, Piccola?" he asked, eyeing James with interest. "This is my dad," Lily said, and again James felt that strange constriction in his chest at the word. "He just found me." Tony's eyebrows shot up, but to his credit, he simply smiled and said, "Well, welcome to the neighborhood, sir." First cones on the house. As they sat at a small table by the window, James watched Lily and Emma giggling over their enormous sundaes. Something about the scene, its normality, its simple joy, made his throat tight. How many moments like this had he missed? How many more might he have missed if not for that chance encounter at the intersection? When they dropped Emma off at her mother's flower shop, James was surprised by the small, colorful storefront, tucked between a laundromat and a convenience store. A slender woman with Emma's curly red hair was arranging a display in the window. She straightened when she saw them, her expression curious. "Mom," Emma called, jumping out of the car. "This is Lily's dad." "The rich one." James winced slightly as he stepped out to introduce himself. The woman wiped her hands on her apron and extended one to him. "Sarah Thompson. I've heard a lot about you in the last few hours, apparently." Her tone was neutral, but her eyes were assessing. "James Wilson. It's nice to meet you." He glanced at the shop window where vibrant arrangements caught the late afternoon light. "Your flowers are beautiful." "They should be. I spend more time with them than with my daughter." There was no self-pity in her voice, just matter-of-fact acknowledgement. Something about her directness reminded him of Emma. "Single parent?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Sarah nodded. Since Emma was 3, her father decided family life wasn't compatible with his artistic journey. She made air quotes around the phrase. At least he was honest about it. Didn't try to pretend he'd be back. The implication was clear. James felt himself bristle slightly, then reminded himself that from her perspective, he was just another absent father. "I didn't know about Lily," he said quietly. "Her mother never told me." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "That's what Emma said. For what it's worth, I believe you. Most men who abandon their kids don't show up in Bentleys to buy them ice cream a decade later." She glanced at where Lily and Emma were huddled together, whispering, "She's a good kid, resilient, but careful with her trust." "I'm learning that," James acknowledged. Sarah studied him for a moment longer, then said, "If you hurt that girl, there's no luxury car nice enough to protect you from her grandmother. And me. I've seen Martha Parker in action. She's a force of nature." Despite the warning, James found himself smiling. "I'm counting on it. She's the reason Lily has survived this long without me." As they said their goodbyes and James and Lily returned to the car, he felt a strange sense of having been accepted, however conditionally, into some sort of community he hadn't known existed. A community of people who looked out for each other's children, who made do with what they had, who built lives in the shadows of the gleaming towers where he spent his days. "I like Emma's mom," he commented as they drove toward Martha's apartment. Lily nodded. "She's cool. She teaches me about flowers sometimes. She says I have a good eye for color combinations." She hesitated, then added, "Mom used to say that too, that I notice things other people don't." James glanced at her. "Like what?" "Like how the light changes colors at different times of day, or how people's voices sound different when they're lying." She looked at him directly. "You're not lying about wanting to be my dad, are you?" The question was so direct, so vulnerable beneath its challenging tone that James had to grip the steering wheel to steady himself. "No, Lily, I'm not lying about that. It's the most honest I've been about anything in a very long time." She nodded, satisfied for now. "Good, because Grandma says we can't afford to be disappointed again." As they pulled up to Martha's building, James saw the older woman watching from the window. Her expression was unreadable, but he felt the weight of her judgment even from a distance. The road ahead would not be easy. There were bridges still to build, trust to earn, years to account for. But as Lily climbed out of the car, she turned back with a small wave and a smile that reached her eyes. For now, that was enough. The boardroom of Wilson Technologies fell silent as James concluded his presentation. The expansive windows behind him framed Boston's skyline, the same view he had admired countless times during critical company moments. But today, the cityscape seemed distant, almost irrelevant compared to the faces studying him with varying degrees of disbelief. "To summarize," he said, gathering his notes, "I'm not stepping down completely. I'm simply reducing my operational role to focus on strategic direction while Vanessa takes over day-to-day management. This restructuring will benefit everyone, including our shareholders." Harold Blackwood, the silver-haired chairman, leaned forward, his expression thunderous. "This restructuring, as you call it, comes just weeks after you discovered you have a daughter. Are we really supposed to believe this isn't about that?" James met the older man's gaze steadily. "My personal situation prompted me to reevaluate my priorities, yes, but this decision is ultimately about what's best for Wilson Technologies. Vanessa has been ready for this responsibility for years." He nodded toward Vanessa Chen, who sat calmly at the opposite end of the table. "The company needs fresh leadership to move forward." "Fresh leadership?" Harold's voice rose incredulously. "You built this company from nothing. The investors trust you, not some untested—" "I was untested once too," James interrupted. "And Vanessa has been with us for 7 years. She's hardly inexperienced." Several board members nodded in agreement, including Marcus Jennings, the company's longest-serving advisor. "James has a point," Marcus said, stroking his grey beard thoughtfully. "And we've been discussing succession planning for years. This just accelerates the timeline." Harold's face flushed. "A succession plan should be implemented gradually, not rushed through because James suddenly developed paternal instincts." The harshness of the words hung in the air. James felt his jaw tighten but maintained his composure. "I understand your concerns, Harold, but my decision stands. The transition will happen over 3 months, with my continued involvement as executive chairman. I believe this board will eventually see the wisdom in this approach." The meeting adjourned with tension still simmering. As the members filed out, Vanessa approached James. Her sleek black suit and confident posture reflected the polished executive she had become since joining Wilson Technologies as a brilliant but reserved software engineer. "They'll come around," she said quietly. "Harold's just worried about the stock price." James sighed, loosening his tie. "He's worried about change. We all fear what we can't control." Vanessa smiled slightly. "Speaking of things we can't control, how's it going with Lily?" The question brought a warmth to James's expression that had been absent during the board meeting. "It's complicated." "Good, but complicated. She's starting to trust me, I think. Her grandmother, on the other hand, still giving you the evil eye?" James chuckled. "That would be an improvement. Martha looks at me like she's calculating exactly how many pieces to cut my body into." Despite his light tone, there was truth behind the words. Martha Parker had made her distrust abundantly clear during each of his visits. Just yesterday, she had cornered him in the kitchen while Lily was finishing her homework. "You think you can just waltz in and play daddy whenever it suits you?" she had demanded, her voice low enough that Lily couldn't hear from the next room. "That girl has been through enough disappointment." "I'm not going anywhere, Mrs. Parker," James had assured her. "I'm in Lily's life for good now," Martha had scoffed. "Until the novelty wears off? Until your fancy business needs you more than she does? Men like you don't change their stripes, Mr. Wilson." The memory faded as Vanessa touched his arm lightly. "Give her time. You're asking her to trust the man who, in her mind, abandoned her daughter and granddaughter." "I didn't know Lily existed," James protested, an argument he had made countless times in recent weeks. Vanessa shrugged. "Doesn't matter. Perception is reality. You've been living in luxury while they've been struggling. That's a hard pill to swallow." She glanced at her watch. Speaking of which, don't you have a school function to attend? James checked his own watch and swore under his breath. Lily's art showcase, I promised I'd be there early. He gathered his belongings hastily. Can you handle the investor call this afternoon? Already prepped for it, Vanessa assured him. Go be a dad, that's more important right now. As James rushed out of the building, he couldn't help marveling at how quickly his priorities had shifted. 6 weeks ago, nothing would have pulled him away from an important investor call. Now he was reorganizing his entire professional life around school events and weekend outings, with a 12-year-old girl he was still getting to know. The middle school auditorium buzzed with activity when James arrived. Student artwork lined the walls, proud parents clustered in groups, teachers directed traffic with practiced efficiency. James felt oddly out of place in his business suit among the casually dressed families. He scanned the room for Lily, but didn't see her. Mr. Wilson. A woman's voice caught his attention. He turned to find Sarah Thompson approaching, a camera hanging around her neck. Her curly red hair was pulled back and she wore a simple floral dress instead of the work apron he had seen her in previously. Sarah, hello? He greeted her, genuinely pleased to see a familiar face. Are you here for Emma? She nodded. Emma's got a painting in the 7th grade section, and I'm the unofficial photographer. She held up her camera with a smile. The school can't afford a professional, so the parents take turns. James felt a pang of something like shame. The cost of hiring a professional photographer would have been negligible to him, yet these parents were pooling their resources, taking turns, making do. It was a world he had been completely disconnected from until recently. Have you seen Lily? He asked. I'm running a bit late. She's with her grandmother near the 6th grade display, Sarah replied, gesturing toward the far corner of the auditorium. Fair warning. Martha's been watching the door for the past 20 minutes. She mentioned something about proving a point if you didn't show. James winced. I got held up at a board meeting. The company's going through some changes. Sarah gave him an appraising look. Important changes? Life-changing, he admitted. I'm stepping back from daily operations, giving myself more time for... He hesitated, then finished. For what matters? Something in Sarah's expression softened. That's a big step, especially for someone in your position. Before James could respond, Emma appeared, grabbing Sarah's arm excitedly. Mom, you have to come see Lily's drawing. It's so good, the art teacher wants to enter it in the city competition. She noticed James and added, without pausing for breath, Oh, hi, Mr. Wilson. Lily's been looking for you everywhere. She thought you weren't coming. The innocent comment stung more than any of Harold's barbs had earlier. James followed Emma and Sarah through the crowded auditorium until they reached the 6th grade display. There stood Lily, wearing a dress he had never seen before. Simple blue cotton with small embroidered flowers at the collar. Martha stood beside her, one hand protectively on her granddaughter's shoulder. The moment Lily spotted him, her face lit up with relief and something else. Joy, perhaps, or pride. You came, she exclaimed, rushing toward him. I thought maybe you forgot. I would never forget, James assured her, surprised when she threw her arms around him in a quick, impulsive hug. It was the first time she had initiated physical contact, and the significance wasn't lost on him. I got held up at work, but I'm here now. Where's this amazing artwork I've been hearing about? Lily led him to a large drawing mounted on black construction paper. James felt his breath catch as he took it in. The piece was extraordinary, especially for a 12-year-old artist. It depicted a city intersection viewed from above, with dozens of cars frozen in traffic. But what made the drawing remarkable was its perspective. The viewer could somehow see inside each vehicle, glimpsing the lives contained within. A woman singing along to music, a man arguing on his phone, children playing games in the back seat, an elderly couple holding hands across the console. And in the center, a black car with tinted windows, a man at the wheel looking startled as a small figure approached with a rag and water bottle. Lily, this is... James struggled to find adequate words. This is incredible. Lily shifted nervously from one foot to the other. It's called intersections. Ms. Abernathy says it shows thematic maturity. She pronounced the phrase carefully, as if reciting a foreign language. It's about how people's lives cross paths without them knowing it, until sometimes they do. James studied the drawing more closely, noticing details he had missed at first glance. In the corner was a small flower shop. In another, an ice cream parlor where tiny figures sat at window tables. Near the edge, a school with children streaming through its doors. All the places that had become significant in their shared journey over the past weeks. "You've captured something profound here," he said softly. The moment everything changed. Martha approached, her expression guarded but not entirely hostile. "She's always had a gift," she said. "Gets it from her mother. Caroline could draw anything she saw just like that." She snapped her fingers for emphasis. The mention of Caroline created a moment of shared silence. James had learned not to ask too many questions about Lily's mother, sensing the grief still raw in both Lily and Martha. He knew only the basics, that she had been a talented artist who worked multiple jobs to support her daughter, that she had never spoken ill of him to Lily, and that she had been gone for 3 years, taken by an illness they couldn't afford to treat properly. "I wish I had known her," James said quietly. It was the truth, though inadequate. Martha's eyes narrowed slightly. "She knew you. Followed your success in the business pages. Always said Lily's father was doing important things in the world." There was a bitterness to her words that James couldn't miss. Before he could respond, the school principal approached their small group. "Lily Parker," she asked, a clipboard in hand. "Ms. Abernathy has recommended your piece for the Boston Young Artists Exhibition. It's quite an honor. Only 3 students from each school are selected." Lily's eyes widened. "Really?" The principal smiled. "Really. The exhibition is at the Harrington Gallery downtown. Very prestigious. There's a reception for the artists and their families next Friday evening." She handed Martha a formal invitation. "Black tie optional. The mayor usually attends, along with several prominent patrons of the arts." Martha's expression fell slightly as she examined the invitation. "That's wonderful news," she said to Lily, though her enthusiasm seemed forced. "We'll have to see about getting you something nice to wear." James understood immediately. The unspoken financial concern, the implication that they might not be able to afford appropriate attire for such an event, the constant calculations of a woman raising her granddaughter on a limited income. "I'd be honored to escort both of you," he said carefully, not wanting to overstep. "My company sponsors the Harrington Gallery. I usually attend their events anyway." Martha's pride visibly battled with practicality. "That's not necessary, Mr. Wilson. Please, I insist. It would mean a lot to me to be there for Lily's first exhibition." He turned to his daughter. "If you want me there, of course." Lily nodded eagerly. "Of course I do. And Grandma too, right?" Martha sighed, relenting. "Fine. But we can handle our own preparations, thank you very much." James knew better than to push further at that moment. The rest of the evening passed pleasantly as they toured the other exhibits. Emma proudly showed off her painting, an impressionistic rendition of her mother's flower shop bursting with colors that seemed to leap off the canvas. James found himself genuinely enjoying the company of Sarah and Emma, as well as other parents they introduced him to. It was a world so different from his usual social circles of executives and investors, yet somehow more authentic. As the event wound down, Lily surprised him by asking, "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" She glanced at Martha. "Please, Grandma? Dad can drive us." The casual way she said Dad still caught James off guard every time. Martha looked tired but nodded. "Just this once, since it's a special occasion." Tony's ice cream parlor was nearly empty when they arrived. The jovial owner greeted them warmly, insisting on serving Lily a special artist's sundae with an elaborate arrangement of toppings. "On the house," he declared proudly. "We must celebrate our neighborhood talent." As they settled into a booth, Martha excused herself to use the restroom, leaving James and Lily alone for a rare moment. "I'm really proud of you," James said. "Your artwork is exceptional. You have a real gift." Lily stirred her ice cream, suddenly shy. "Mom always said art was important because it helps people see things differently." She hesitated, then asked, "Did you ever want to be an artist?" The question caught James by surprise. "I used to draw when I was younger. Nothing like what you can do, but I enjoyed it." "What happened? Why did you stop?" Such a simple question, yet it cut to the heart of something James hadn't considered in years. Life, I suppose. College, then business school, then building the company. There never seemed to be time for anything else. "That sounds sad," Lily observed, with the straightforward clarity children often possess. James considered this. I never thought of it that way. I was achieving my goals, building something successful. But you weren't drawing. She said it as if this explained everything. Perhaps in some way it did. No, he acknowledged. I wasn't drawing, or doing many other things that might have made me happy, like being a father. The unspoken thought hung between them. Martha returned, and the conversation shifted to logistics for the upcoming gallery event. As they were preparing to leave, Tony approached their table with a small, wrapped package. "A little something for our artist," he said, handing it to Lily. "My nephew works at the art supply store downtown. He helped me pick it out." Lily unwrapped the gift to find a set of professional-grade colored pencils, the kind she had admired in art magazines but never expected to own. Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Mr. Tony. These are amazing." The genuine emotion in her voice touched something in James. He had given her expensive gifts over the past weeks, books, a new backpack, even a tablet for schoolwork, but none had elicited this response. There was a lesson here, one he was still learning. The value of a gift lay not in its price tag, but in its meaning, in the thought behind it. As they drove Martha and Lily home, James found himself thinking about the gallery reception ahead. It represented a collision of his worlds, the affluent corporate environment he had built his life around, and the simple, struggling existence that had shaped his daughter. How would Lily feel in that setting? How would Martha handle the scrutiny of Boston's elite? And more importantly, how would he navigate his role as father in such a public forum? The thought both terrified and exhilarated him. For the first time in years, James Wilson was stepping into uncharted territory. With no business plan to guide him, no corporate strategy to fall back on, just the fragile trust of a 12-year-old girl who called him Dad and looked at him with eyes that saw through his carefully constructed facade. And somehow that seemed like the most important challenge he had ever faced. The Harrington Gallery stood like a beacon of culture and wealth in downtown Boston, its glass and stone facade illuminated against the evening sky. Limousines and luxury cars lined the circular driveway as attendees in formal attire made their way through the grand entrance. James adjusted his bow tie nervously as his driver pulled up to the red carpet. This was familiar territory for him. He had attended countless galas and fundraisers in venues like this, yet tonight felt entirely different. Tonight, he wasn't James Wilson, CEO of Wilson Technologies. He was simply Lily's father. The thought both humbled and terrified him. He had offered to pick up Lily and Martha, but Martha had insisted they would meet him at the gallery. "We'll take the tea," she had said firmly when he called earlier. "No need to go out of your way." No amount of persuasion could change her mind. Now, as he stepped out of his car, he scanned the entrance anxiously for any sign of them. "James!" A familiar voice called his name. He turned to see Marcus Jennings, his board member and longtime advisor, approaching with his wife. "I didn't expect to see you here tonight. Thought you were scaling back on social appearances." James smiled, shaking the older man's hand. "I'm here for personal reasons, actually. My daughter has artwork in the exhibition." The word still felt new on his tongue, both strange and wonderful. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. "Your daughter, the one you recently—" He trailed off diplomatically. "Yes, Lily, she's 12, incredibly talented. Her school selected her piece for the Young Artist section." James couldn't keep the pride from his voice. "Well, this I have to see," Marcus said, genuine interest in his tone. "Caroline, did you hear that? James's daughter is one of the featured artists tonight." Caroline Jennings, an elegant woman with a warm smile, squeezed James's arm affectionately. "How wonderful. We've been supporting the Young Artists program for years. Such amazing talent." They chatted briefly before Marcus and Caroline moved inside, promising to find him later to meet Lily. James resumed his watch of the entrance, growing increasingly concerned as the minutes ticked by. Had Martha changed her mind? Had the intimidating setting discouraged them from coming? Just as he was about to call, he spotted them climbing the gallery steps. His heart nearly stopped. Lily wore a simple but elegant blue dress that brought out the color of her eyes. Her hair, usually in a practical ponytail, had been styled in loose waves around her shoulders. She looked both older and more vulnerable somehow, clutching a small purse with white-knuckled fingers as she took in the imposing building. Beside her, Martha wore what was clearly her best outfit, a modest navy suit that had seen better days but had been meticulously pressed. As they reached the top of the steps, Lily spotted him and waved, relief washing over her features. James hurried to meet them. "You both look beautiful," he said sincerely. Martha brushed off the compliment with a dismissive gesture, but Lily beamed. "Sarah helped us get ready," she explained. "She knows about fancy stuff. She used to work in a department store before she opened the flower shop." "She did an excellent job," James said. He offered his arm to Martha, who hesitated before taking it stiffly. "Shall we go in? I believe the mayor's about to make his opening remarks." The grand hall of the Harrington was transformed for the evening, with subtle lighting highlighting the artwork displayed on its pristine walls. Champagne flowed freely as Boston's elite mingled among sculptures and paintings worth millions. James felt Lily draw closer to him as they entered, overwhelmed by the spectacle. "It's so fancy," she whispered. "What if nobody likes my drawing?" "They will," he assured her. "But even if some don't, that doesn't diminish its value. Art is subjective. What matters is that you created something meaningful." Martha snorted softly. "Listen to him. 3 weeks as a father and suddenly he's full of wisdom." The words were sharp, but delivered with less venom than usual. James chose to take it as progress. They made their way to the Young Artists section, where Lily's drawing had been professionally framed and displayed alongside works by other talented students. Seeing intersections in this setting, under perfect lighting and presented with such respect, James was struck anew by his daughter's talent. The detailed scene of lives crossing at a traffic stop had a depth and emotional resonance that many of the professional works lacked. A small crowd had gathered around it, including Marcus and Caroline, who were studying it intently. "There you are," Marcus exclaimed when he spotted them. "This must be the artist herself." He extended his hand to Lily. "Marcus Jennings. I serve on your father's board of directors. This is my wife, Caroline." Lily shook their hands politely, though James could feel her tension. "Nice to meet you," she managed. Caroline knelt slightly to be at eye level with Lily. "Your piece is extraordinary. The perspective, the detail, I've never seen anything quite like it." The genuine admiration in her voice seemed to ease Lily's anxiety. "Thank you," she said, a hint of confidence returning. "I worked on it for almost a month." "It shows," Caroline said warmly. "You've captured something most artists spend lifetimes trying to convey, the interconnectedness of human experience." Martha, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "She gets her talent from her mother. Caroline, my daughter, not you, ma'am, was an incredible artist." There was both pride and pain in her voice. "I'd love to have seen her work," Caroline Jennings replied gently. "Talent like this often runs in families." The conversation continued, with Marcus and Caroline asking Lily thoughtful questions about her process and inspiration. James watched with a swelling heart as his daughter gradually relaxed, her passion for art overcoming her nervousness. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of Harold Blackwood, who approached their small group with a glass of champagne in hand. "James, didn't expect to see you here. Thought you'd be too busy with your new priorities." The slight emphasis on the last words carried an unmistakable judgment. James stiffened but maintained his composure. "Harold, allow me to introduce you to my daughter, Lily Parker, one of the featured artists tonight, and her grandmother, Martha Parker." Harold's eyes widened slightly as he took in Lily and Martha, as if seeing them made the situation suddenly real in a way it hadn't been during board discussions. "Ah, so this is the reason for our corporate restructuring." The comment hung awkwardly in the air. Martha's back straightened, her eyes narrowing at the implied criticism. Before James could respond, Lily spoke up. "What's corporate restructuring?" she asked innocently. Marcus chuckled. "It means your father is making some changes at his company so he can spend more time with you. And some people, like our friend Harold here, are having trouble adjusting to those changes." He gave Harold a pointed look. Harold had the grace to look embarrassed. "Yes, well, change is always challenging in business." He cleared his throat. "Your artwork is quite impressive for someone so young." It wasn't the most enthusiastic compliment, but Lily accepted it with a polite, "Thank you." The interaction was mercifully cut short by the arrival of the gallery director, who was escorting the mayor around the exhibition. "And here we have one of our most remarkable young artists," the director announced as they approached. "Lily Parker, a 6th grader whose work has already caught the attention of several of our patrons." Mayor Reynolds, a tall woman with a politician's practiced smile, bent to shake Lily's hand. "Congratulations, young lady. Your work shows exceptional promise." She glanced at the nameplate beside the drawing, then at James. "Parker, not Wilson." The question was innocent enough, but James felt Martha tense beside him. Before he could formulate a response, Lily answered with simple honesty. "My dad didn't know about me until recently. We met at a traffic light when I was cleaning his windshield." The bluntness of the statement caused a ripple of surprised murmurs among those nearby. Mayor Reynolds recovered quickly. "Well, that sounds like quite a story. Perhaps more interesting than many of the artworks here tonight." She smiled genuinely at Lily. "I look forward to seeing more of your work in the future, Ms. Parker." As the mayor and director moved on, James noticed Martha watching him closely. "Bothered by the different last name?" she asked quietly. James shook his head. "Not at all. She's a Parker. That's who she is." Something in Martha's expression softened slightly. Her mother considered changing it, you know, when she found out she was pregnant. But then she decided Lily should have her own identity, not be defined by either of her parents. It was the most personal information Martha had ever volunteered about Caroline, and James recognized it as the olive branch it was. "She made the right choice," he said softly. The evening continued with more introductions, more admirers of Lily's work. James watched as his daughter navigated the attention with increasing confidence, her initial anxiety giving way to a quiet pride. Martha, too, seemed to relax somewhat, especially after several prominent patrons expressed genuine interest in Lily's artistic future. As the formal presentations began, James found himself seated between Lily and Martha in the gallery's auditorium. The mayor spoke about the importance of arts education, followed by the gallery director, announcing various awards and recognitions. When they called the young artists to the stage to receive certificates of achievement, James felt an unexpected lump in his throat, watching Lily accept hers with dignified poise. "She looks like her mother up there," Martha whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Caroline would have been so proud." "I'm proud," James replied, "more than I can express." Martha studied him for a moment. "Maybe you're not as bad as I thought, Wilson." Coming from Martha, it was practically a declaration of affection. The award ceremony concluded with the announcement of a special opportunity for the young artists, a summer intensive program at the prestigious Boston Arts Academy, fully funded by gallery patrons. When Lily's name was called as one of the selected participants, James felt her grip his hand tightly in excitement. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, eyes wide. "A real art program. With professional teachers." Her joy was infectious, lighting up her entire being. As the formal portion of the evening ended and guests returned to mingling, Lily was approached by the program director, who explained the details of the summer intensive. Martha listened attentively, asking practical questions about schedules and requirements, while Lily practically vibrated with excitement. James stood slightly apart, giving them space while feeling a profound contentment wash over him. "She's remarkable," a voice said beside him. He turned to find Sarah Thompson standing there, elegant in a simple black dress, her camera hanging around her neck. "Sarah, I didn't know you were here." "Professional capacity," she explained, lifting her camera. "The gallery hired me to document the event. Apparently one of their regular photographers saw my work at a community exhibition and recommended me." She smiled. "Quite a step up from school art shows." "Well deserved, I'm sure," James said sincerely. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Lily and Martha. "You know," Sarah said eventually, "when Emma first told me Lily had found her long-lost father and he was some rich CEO, I was skeptical. Thought you might be a disruption in their lives, maybe even harmful." She glanced at him. "I've never been happier to be wrong." The honesty of her statement touched him. "I'm still figuring it out. Every day I'm terrified of making a mistake, of not being what she needs." "That's called being a parent," Sarah laughed softly. "The terror never goes away. You just get used to it." As the evening drew to a close, Lily made her way back to James, still glowing from the excitement of the program acceptance. "They said I might be able to have my own show someday," she told him breathlessly. "A whole gallery with just my art in it." "I have no doubt," James said, meaning it completely. Martha joined them, looking tired but pleased. "It's getting late," she said. "We should head home." "Let me drive you," James offered. To his surprise, Martha didn't immediately refuse. Instead, she glanced at Lily's hopeful expression and sighed. Fine. These shoes weren't made for subway stairs anyway. The drive to Martha's apartment was filled with Lily's animated recounting of conversations she'd had with various artists and gallery patrons. James listened, struck by how different this child was from the guarded girl he'd met at the traffic light just weeks ago. As they arrived at the modest apartment building, Martha surprised him again. "Would you like to come up for coffee?" Nothing fancy, mind you, just instant. It was a small gesture, but James recognized its significance. He was being invited into their home not as a visitor, but as family. "I'd like that very much," he said. The apartment was small but meticulously clean, decorated with second-hand furniture and walls covered with framed drawings. Lily's work through the years, he realized, carefully preserved and displayed with love. Martha busied herself in the tiny kitchen while Lily disappeared to change out of her dress. Left alone in the living room, James noticed a photograph on a side table. A woman with Lily's eyes smiled at the camera, her arm around a much younger Lily, Caroline. He picked up the frame carefully, studying the face of the woman he had known briefly, but who had shaped so much of his life without his knowledge. "That was taken about 4 years ago," Martha said, returning with 2 mugs of coffee. 6 months before she got sick. James accepted the coffee, still holding the photograph. She was beautiful. Yes, she was. Martha sat heavily in an armchair across from him. Not just her looks. She had a beautiful soul. Worked 3 jobs sometimes to keep a roof over Lily's head. Never complained. She fixed James with a direct look. "She didn't tell you about the pregnancy, because she knew you were on your way up in the world. Said she didn't want to be an obligation to a man with bigger dreams." The words cut deep. James set down the photograph carefully. "I would have helped. If I'd known—" "Would you?" Martha interrupted. "Really? The ambitious young entrepreneur with a startup to run. Would you have embraced fatherhood then when you had everything to lose?" It was a fair question, one James had asked himself many times since discovering Lily. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "I'd like to think I would have done the right thing. But I was different then, focused only on success, on proving myself." He met Martha's gaze directly. "I can't change the past, so I can only try to be worthy of Lily now." Martha seemed to consider this, taking a sip of her coffee. "Caroline never spoke badly of you to Lily. Always said her father was a good man doing important things, made you sound like some kind of hero." She smiled sadly. "That girl had a gift for seeing the best in people," Lily returned, now in pajamas with her hair pulled back in its usual ponytail. She curled up on the couch next to James, yawning. "Can we go to the art supply store tomorrow? The program director gave me a list of materials I'll need for the summer." "Of course," James said, surprised and touched by how naturally she had included him in her plans. Martha set down her mug. "Actually, I was thinking maybe you could stay with your father tomorrow night, if that's all right with both of you." The suggestion caught James off guard. Martha had never before suggested Lily spend the night at his apartment. "I have a late shift at the diner," she explained. "Usually Mrs. Rodriguez from downstairs watches her, but she's visiting her sister this weekend." "I'd love that," James said carefully, looking at Lily. "If you're comfortable with it." Lily nodded, another yawn escaping. "Can we watch movies? Emma says you probably have a huge TV." "The biggest," James confirmed, smiling. "And we can order any food you want." As Lily's eyelids began to droop, Martha stood. "Bedtime, young lady. You've had enough excitement for one night." Lily protested half-heartedly but complied, giving James a quick hug before heading to her room. "Good night, Dad," she called over her shoulder. Martha walked James to the door. "Pick her up around noon tomorrow. She has homework to finish in the morning." James nodded. "Thank you, Martha, for tonight. For everything." Martha regarded him with an unreadable expression. "Don't thank me yet, Wilson. You've still got a lot to prove." But there was less hostility in her words than before, perhaps even a hint of hope. As James drove home through the quiet streets of nighttime Boston, he reflected on the evening's events. The gallery, the award, Martha's tentative acceptance. Small steps in a journey he was only beginning to understand. His phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "How did it go?" He smiled, typing back. She shined brighter than anything in that gallery. It was true. Among all the priceless art and wealthy patrons, nothing had seemed more valuable, more perfect than his daughter's smile as she stood on that stage. For the first time in his adult life, James Wilson felt complete, not because of a business achievement or financial milestone, but because a 12-year-old girl with her mother's eyes had called him Dad and meant it. The penthouse apartment that had once seemed the pinnacle of success now felt empty, without her laughter filling its spaces. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow she would be here, filling these rooms with life. It wasn't just his world colliding with hers anymore. They were, slowly but surely, creating a new world together. 6 months later, the same intersection where James and Lily had first met was alive with midday traffic. Spring had transformed Boston, bringing cherry blossoms to the public garden and a renewed energy to the city streets. James waited patiently at the red light, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel in rhythm with the classical music playing softly through the car's speakers. The past half-year had been a journey of transformation, filled with challenges, adjustments, and moments of unexpected joy. His life had been completely reorganized around a priority he had never anticipated, being a father. The passenger seat beside him was no longer empty. Lily sat there sketching in the professional-grade notebook he had given her for her 13th birthday last month, her brow furrowed in concentration as her pencil moved across the page with confident strokes. "What are you working on?" James asked, glancing over. Lily tilted the sketchbook slightly to give him a better view. "It's for my final project at the arts program. We're supposed to create something that represents personal transformation." The drawing showed 2 versions of the same intersection, the one they were currently stopped at. In the first panel, a small figure stood between cars with a rag and bottle. In the second, the same intersection was transformed into an art gallery, with the windows of each car displaying framed artwork, pedestrians gathering to admire them. "It's about how places can mean different things depending on what happens there," Lily explained. "This intersection used to be just a place where I worked to earn money. Now it's where my life changed." James felt a familiar tightness in his throat. These moments still caught him off guard, these glimpses into his daughter's profound way of seeing the world. "It's beautiful, Lily. Truly." The light turned green, and he drove on, heading toward Martha's apartment. Their routine had evolved over the months. Lily stayed at his penthouse 3 nights a week, more during school breaks. Martha had gradually relaxed her vigilance, though she still fixed him with the occasional suspicious glare when he dropped Lily off late or forgot to check her homework. Today was special. They were picking up Martha for a family dinner at James's penthouse. The occasion, celebrating Lily's acceptance into Westlake Academy, one of Boston's most prestigious arts-focused schools with a full scholarship. It had been a joint decision, reached after weeks of discussion between James, Martha, and Lily. The opportunity was too significant to pass up, but James had been careful not to push, knowing how important it was for Martha to remain involved in these decisions. As they pulled up to the apartment building, James noticed moving boxes stacked near the entrance. "Looks like someone's leaving," he commented. Lily glanced up from her drawing. "Yeah, the Ramirez family from 3B. Mr. Ramirez lost his job and they couldn't make rent." She stated this matter-of-factly, but James heard the undercurrent of concern in her voice. It was one of many reminders of how different her world had been from his, how precarious life could be for the families in this neighborhood. Martha was waiting for them, dressed in what James now recognized as her going-out outfit, a modest blue dress and cardigan that she wore for special occasions. She had allowed him to replace her ancient flip phone with a smartphone last month, a concession that had required weeks of negotiation. "Right on time for once," she remarked, as she climbed into the back seat, though her tone lacked its former bite. "Miracles do happen." "Nice to see you too, Martha," James replied with a smile. They had developed a rapport of sorts, not quite friendship, but a mutual respect born of their shared love for Lily. The drive to James's penthouse was filled with Lily's excited chatter about her upcoming final exhibition at the arts program and her plans for the summer before starting at Westlake in the fall. Martha contributed occasional comments, while James listened contentedly. These ordinary moments, just driving, talking, being together, had become the most precious parts of his new life. As they rode the private elevator up to the penthouse, Martha still looked slightly uncomfortable, never quite at ease in the luxury of James's building, despite her increasing visits. Lily, on the other hand, bounded out as soon as the doors opened, heading straight for the kitchen where Vanessa was arranging appetizers. "Vanessa, did you bring those spinach puffs I like?" Lily's relationship with James's COO had been an unexpected development. The two had bonded over a shared love of science fiction novels and elaborate board games, leading to Vanessa becoming something of a mentor to Lily, particularly in areas where James was hopelessly out of his depth, like fashion trends and social media. "Would I dare show my face without them?" Vanessa laughed, opening a container to reveal the promised treats. "And I brought the card game you wanted to try." Martha followed more slowly, taking in the panoramic view of Boston Harbor that still impressed her despite her determined efforts to seem unaffected by the opulence. "Evening, Vanessa. Don't you have a company to run instead of playing chef? The company runs itself these days," Vanessa replied easily, "thanks to your son-in-law's excellent restructuring." She winked at James as she said it. "Besides, tonight's special. We're celebrating our future artist-in-residence at Westlake." James moved to the kitchen to help with final dinner preparations. The meal was catered. His cooking skills remained rudimentary despite Lily's attempts to teach him basics, but he had insisted on setting the table himself, wanting everything to be perfect for their celebration. As they settled around the dining table, James took a moment to appreciate the scene before him. Lily animatedly describing her new art teacher to Vanessa, Martha surreptitiously admiring the hand-painted dinnerware, the sunset casting a golden glow across the harbor through the floor-to-ceiling windows. It was a tableau he could never have imagined a year ago. A family gathered in his once sterile apartment, filling it with conversation and laughter. "Before we eat," James said, raising his glass, "I'd like to make a toast." The others quieted, turning expectant faces toward him. "To Lily, whose talent and hard work have earned her this incredible opportunity." Lily blushed, pleased but embarrassed by the attention. "And to Martha," James continued, meeting the older woman's eyes, "whose strength and devotion raised an extraordinary young woman under circumstances that would have broken many people." Martha looked surprised, then nodded slightly in acknowledgement. "And if I may," Vanessa added, raising her own glass, "to James, who had the courage to completely reorganize his life when it would have been easier to simply write checks from a distance." James felt a flush of embarrassment now, understanding how Lily felt. "That wasn't courage," he protested. "That was self-interest. My life is immeasurably better with Lily in it." "Hear, hear," Martha said, raising her glass in a rare moment of explicit approval. Dinner progressed with the comfortable rhythm they had developed over months of shared meals. Afterward, as Vanessa and Lily became engrossed in setting up their card game in the living room, James found himself alone with Martha on the balcony, watching the city lights emerge as dusk deepened. "Caroline would have been happy about Westlake," Martha said after a comfortable silence. "She always wanted Lily to have opportunities she never got." James nodded. "I wish I could have helped sooner. All those years," Martha sighed. "I've been thinking about that. Maybe it happened when it was supposed to. Maybe you needed to become the man you are now before you could be the father Lily needed." It was the closest thing to absolution Martha had ever offered him. "Thank you for that," James said quietly. "I don't deserve your generosity." Martha snorted. "It's not generosity, it's pragmatism. What's done is done. Lily's happy, that's what matters." She hesitated, then added, "And you're not the heartless corporate robot I thought you were. You've proven that much." Coming from Martha, it was high praise indeed. Their conversation was interrupted by Lily calling from inside. "Dad, Grandma, come play with us. Vanessa's teaching me a new game." Martha smiled slightly at the sound of excitement in her granddaughter's voice. "She calls this place home now, you know. She told me last week." The simple statement carried profound weight. Home. It was all James had wanted, for Lily to feel that his space was hers too, that she belonged in his life completely. "This summer," he said hesitantly, "I was thinking of looking for a house, something with a yard, more bedrooms, somewhere between her school and your neighborhood." He glanced at Martha. "There would be a room for you, of course, for visits or whatever you might want." Martha raised an eyebrow. "Moving to the suburbs, Wilson. Next you'll be buying a minivan." "If that's what it takes," James replied, completely serious. Martha studied him for a long moment. "You really have changed, haven't you?" Before he could respond, Lily appeared at the balcony door. "Are you guys coming or what? Vanessa's already beating me." "We're coming," James assured her, exchanging a look with Martha before they both followed Lily inside. The evening continued with games and laughter, stretching later than usual as none of them seemed eager for it to end. When Martha finally announced it was time to leave, Lily looked disappointed. "Can't we stay? I don't have school tomorrow." Martha hesitated, looking to James. "Your father might have plans." "Actually," James said carefully, "I was going to suggest the same thing. The guest rooms are already made up." He had prepared them earlier, hoping for this outcome but not wanting to presume. Martha wavered visibly. Staying overnight at James's penthouse represented a significant boundary crossing, a level of trust she had not yet granted. "Please, Grandma," Lily pleaded, "we can have breakfast on the balcony in the morning." "You said yourself the view was nice." Martha sighed in defeat. "Fine, but I didn't bring a toothbrush." "Guest bathrooms are fully stocked," James assured her, trying not to sound too eager. "And I can lend you something to sleep in." The idea of Martha Parker wearing one of his dress shirts as pajamas almost made him laugh, but he managed to maintain his composure. After Vanessa departed with promises to send Lily tickets to the women's tech conference she was speaking at next month, James showed Martha to the guest room. Lily was already familiar with her own room, which they had decorated together over the past months, incorporating elements from her room at Martha's apartment alongside new purchases. As Martha surveyed the guest room with its king-sized bed and ensuite bathroom, she shook her head slightly. All this space for one person never made sense to me. "It never made much sense to me either, looking back," James admitted. "It was just what successful people were supposed to have, like the car and the watch and the corner office." "And now?" Martha prompted. James thought about it. "Now I'm looking for a house with a yard where Lily can set up an easel to paint outdoors, where you can have a proper garden instead of those container plants on your fire escape, where success means something entirely different than what I thought." Martha nodded, apparently satisfied with his answer. "Good night, James." It was the first time she had used his first name instead of Wilson or Mr. Wilson. The significance wasn't lost on him. "Good night, Martha." Later, after checking that both Martha and Lily were settled, James stood at his living room window, looking out at the city below. Boston at night had always seemed like a map of opportunities to him. Deals to close, competitors to outmaneuver, markets to conquer. Now he saw it differently, as the place where his daughter would grow up, where she would develop her talents, where they would build their life together. His phone buzzed with a text from Harold Blackwood. "Q3 projections look concerning. Need to discuss your involvement level. Breakfast tomorrow?" 6 months ago, such a message would have sent James into immediate problem-solving mode, canceling any personal plans to address the company's needs. Now, he typed a simple response. "Can't do tomorrow, family plans. Set up a call for Monday afternoon." He put the phone away without waiting for a reply. In the morning, as promised, they had breakfast on the balcony. Lily had helped prepare it. She was becoming quite the cook under Martha's tutelage, and James found himself enjoying the simple pleasure of fresh fruit and slightly burned toast more than any business lunch at an exclusive restaurant. "I was thinking," Lily said as she spread jam on her toast, "about the summer arts program at Westlake. They have a family project where parents and kids create something together." She glanced at James somewhat shyly. "Would you want to do it with me?" James blinked in surprise. "Me? I haven't drawn anything in decades." "That's okay," Lily assured him. "I can teach you, like you teach me about business stuff." James had indeed begun explaining basic business concepts to Lily, who showed a surprising interest in how companies operated. "The theme is full circle," Lily continued. "We're supposed to create something that shows how endings can also be beginnings." Martha made a small sound that might have been approval. "Sounds right up your alley." "Both of you." James considered it, touched beyond words by the invitation. "I would be honored," he said simply, "though you might regret asking when you see my artistic skills." Lily grinned. "That's okay. I'll make you look good." After breakfast, as they prepared to take Martha home, James noticed Lily lingering by the window, looking down at the city streets far below. "Everything okay?" he asked, joining her. She nodded slowly. "I was just thinking about that day at the intersection. If the light had been green instead of red, if you had been in a different lane, if I had gone to a different corner." James understood immediately. All the little chances that had to align perfectly. "Yeah, she said quietly. "It's weird to think my whole life changed because of a traffic light." James put an arm around her shoulders. "Not just yours." Martha joined them, purse in hand, ready to leave. "What are you two looking so serious about?" "Traffic lights," Lily answered cryptically. "And fate." Martha raised an eyebrow but didn't question further. As they drove through the Sunday morning streets, James found himself approaching the same central intersection where it had all begun. The traffic light turned red just as they arrived. He stopped, a strange sensation washing over him as he realized the exact spot they were in. "This is it," Lily said suddenly, recognizing it too. "This is where we met." Martha leaned forward from the back seat. "Right here, this exact spot?" James nodded. "Right here. She was cleaning windshields and I was on my way to a meeting I don't even remember now." They sat in silence as the red light glowed above them, each lost in their own thoughts about the moment that had connected their lives. When the light turned green, James didn't immediately drive forward. Instead, he turned to Lily and said, "Thank you for cleaning my windshield that day." Lily smiled, her eyes so like her mother's, crinkling at the corners. "Thank you for rolling down your window." Martha made a sound suspiciously like a sniffle from the back seat, though she would certainly deny it if questioned. The cars behind them honked impatiently, much as they had that day 6 months ago. But this time, as James drove forward, he wasn't alone. The car carried his family, unexpected, unconventional, still finding their way together, but a family nonetheless. 3 weeks later, James stood in the crowded gallery of the Boston Arts Academy, surrounded by parents and students admiring the artwork from the summer intensive program. Lily stood beside him, practically vibrating with excitement as they waited for visitors to approach their display. The collaborative family project had taken over his dining room for the past 2 weeks, with art supplies scattered across the usually pristine surface, and lengthy discussions about color theory and composition replacing his normal business calls. The final piece was now mounted on the gallery wall, a large mixed-media creation showing the central intersection from above, rendered in Lily's detailed style. But woven throughout were elements James had contributed: architectural drawings of the surrounding buildings, precise renderings of traffic patterns, even a small blueprint of his first office building visible in one corner. And at the center, where their two styles merged, a car with its window rolling down, a small figure standing beside it, both surrounded by a soft golden light that seemed to radiate outward, transforming everything it touched. "Mr. Wilson? Ms. Parker?" The program director approached, accompanied by a well-dressed couple. "I'd like you to meet the Morrisons. They're patrons of our program and were particularly moved by your piece." James shook hands politely, letting Lily take the lead in explaining their artwork. He watched with pride as she articulated their concept with confidence and passion, pointing out the technical elements and symbolic meanings they had incorporated. "The intersection represents life's crossroads," she explained. "How sometimes we're just going about our business, following our usual route, when something unexpected changes everything." The woman nodded appreciatively. "And these golden rays, they're beautiful, almost like a sunrise." "That was actually my dad's idea," Lily said, glancing at James. "He said that meeting me was like seeing the sun for the first time after living in darkness." James felt heat rise to his face. He had indeed said something like that during one of their late-night work sessions, not expecting Lily to remember it, much less share it with strangers. "It's true," he said simply. The couple exchanged glances. "We're very interested in supporting young artists who show this level of insight," the man said. "Would you be open to displaying this piece in our corporate headquarters for a special exhibition next month?" Lily's eyes widened. "Really?" The woman smiled. "Really. We believe art should be seen, especially art that tells important stories like yours." As they discussed details, James noticed Martha entering the gallery, accompanied by Sarah and Emma. They had all become regular fixtures at Lily's art events, forming an unconventional but supportive extended family. Martha spotted him and made her way over, surveying the crowded gallery with approval. "Quite a turnout," she commented. "Lily's work is popular." James nodded, watching as his daughter continued her animated conversation with the patrons. "She's amazing. Sometimes I can't believe she's really mine." Martha gave him a sidelong glance. "She wasn't always yours, but she is now." It was perhaps the most direct acknowledgement Martha had ever made of his place in Lily's life. Coming from her, it felt like a benediction. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for raising her, for keeping her safe until I found her, for sharing her with me now." Martha sniffed, blinking rapidly. "Well, you haven't done too badly these past months." For a corporate type, from Martha it was practically a ringing endorsement. Later that evening, as they celebrated at Tony's ice cream parlor, now their traditional venue for marking special occasions, James watched the assembled group with a sense of wonder. Sarah and Martha discussing community garden plans. Emma teaching Vanessa some complicated handshake she had learned at school. Tony bringing out special sundaes he'd created just for the occasion. And Lily, in the center of it all, belonged to all of them in different ways, but especially to him, in a bond that had formed against all odds at a random traffic light on an ordinary day. When they finally returned to the house, the new house in a leafy neighborhood halfway between Westlake Academy and Martha's apartment building, Lily paused on the front porch. "I've been thinking about something," she said, her expression serious. "About my name." James felt a flicker of anxiety. "What about it?" "I was wondering, how would you feel if I changed it?" "Not completely," she added quickly, seeing his expression. "Just maybe adding Wilson, becoming Lily Parker Wilson." The suggestion caught him completely off guard. "Lily, you don't have to do that. Your name is your identity." "I know," she interrupted. "And I'll always be a Parker. That's from Mom, and it's important. But I'm your daughter too, and I want people to know that." James felt his throat constrict with emotion. "I would be honored," he managed. "More than you could possibly know, but only if you're absolutely sure." Lily nodded decisively. "I'm sure. I've been thinking about it for months. It feels right, like completing a circle." As she headed inside to get ready for bed, James remained on the porch, looking up at the stars visible in the suburban sky. So much clearer here than from his downtown penthouse. The journey of the past year replayed in his mind, from the shocking moment of recognition at the traffic light to this quiet evening at a house that now held his family. Vanessa had asked him recently if he ever regretted the changes he had made, stepping back from daily operations, moving from his luxury penthouse, restructuring his entire life around a child who had appeared without warning. The question had seemed absurd to him. How could he regret the one decision that had brought him true purpose? The front door opened behind him. "Coming in?" Lily asked, now in pajamas, her hair damp from the shower. "In a minute," he replied. "Just thinking." She joined him, leaning against the porch railing. "About what?" "About intersections," he said. "And how sometimes, when you think you know exactly where you're going, life has other plans." Lily smiled. "Good plans, though, right?" James put an arm around her shoulders, feeling the weight and warmth of his daughter beside him. A miracle he had never thought to ask for, but now couldn't imagine living without. "The best plans," he agreed. "Better than anything I could have come up with on my own." They stood together under the stars for a few moments longer before heading inside, closing the door on the quiet suburban street. The house lights glowed warmly through the windows, illuminating a family portrait recently hung in the entryway. James, Lily, and Martha, their faces reflecting different versions of the same happiness. A small inscription beneath it read simply, "Full Circle."